Welcome to the very first episode of Gathering with Purpose. Let me just give you some background of why we decided to do this series. Well, it first started when we were in lockdown for the second time and the church wasn't able to gather physically. And was very early in Table Church's life as well. And we actually were forced in this moment to go back to what it really means to be church. We decided to gather on Zoom instead of just uploading sermons because we thought that church in its essence, the meaning of the word, as you will hear now, actually means assembly or gathering. And so if we just listen to sermons separately, are we really gathering? Are we really being church? And it was a great journey for us to go on to figure out for ourselves again, what is church? What is the essence of church? And what if the church is locked down and cannot meet physically because of a pandemic or because of whatever restrictions are put in place by government? What does that then mean for the church? Can we still be church? Can something like a lockdown change the essence of church? And I don't believe so. And so for this first episode, we wanted to go back to our very first Zoom gathering that we did in the lockdown, where we spoke about the assembly, what it means to gather with purpose. And so for the rest of this series, you can know when we say gathering with purpose, we are actually just talking about what is church. Because church is people gathering for a purpose. And with each episode, we'll focus on another part of the reason we gather, another reason or another purpose for our gathering. We hope you enjoy this journey with us, and we hope at the end of it, you have a very good understanding of what church is really meant to be and all the aspects and elements that make church church. And just spoiler alert, none of those elements are building. And that's the beauty of it. All of those elements include people. So we promise for the second and third and all the episodes after that, we will have a better sound and a better studio as we are outside of lockdown now. But enjoy this first episode with me where we listen to bad Zoom quality sound. See you next week. And so Matthew was a guy who wrote the story of Jesus. So he wrote down what happened, how Jesus came to earth, and then he wrote a lot about Jesus' ministry on earth. And so part of this, we will read in chapter 16 and from verse 16. This is now Jesus talking to a couple of people who were following him, people who were walking with him day to day. And they were just seeing how Jesus lived life, and they were actually just living life with him. So in essence, they were a bit of a church community, walking and traveling together and seeing different things happen in the areas where they were traveling. And this is Jesus asking these people a question now. He's asking them, who do the people say I am? And then they say, yeah, this person says you're this guy, this person says you're this prophet, or you're this guy. And then he asks them, okay, that's very nice, but who do you say I am? And then when he asked them that in verse 15, but you, he asked them, who do you say that I am? And then Simon Peter answered, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. And then Jesus responded, blessed are you. And so then after he says, blessed are you, we read this incredible thing in verse 18. He says, and I also say to you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not overpower it. So not even the gates of hell will be able to stop church. And so two important things that we get from this passage. The first thing is when Jesus says, Peter, on this rock I will build my church. A lot of people think that he's saying, Peter, I will build my church on you. But actually not. If you look at the original language, it's very, very clever what Jesus is saying here. Jesus is actually saying Peter, because Peter in Greek can mean rock. And so he's using the smaller version of rock when he says Peter. So he's saying little pebble to Peter. He's saying little pebble, listen to me. On this rock, now he's using the word for rock, I will build my church. And so what is this rock that he's referring to? The rock is the testimony, what they just testified about. Peter saying, Jesus, you are the Son of God, you are the Messiah, the one who came to save us. That's on that, where he's saying there, that is what he is building the church on. He's building the church on this statement that Jesus is Lord. And by the way, we read a lot about why the Christians in early, if you've ever read any history, you'll hear the early Christians were killed a lot because of the fact that they believed in Jesus. Now, the main reason they were killed, just a quick history lesson for the people who like it, the nerds. They actually were killed because there was a thing that you had to say. You had to say the emperor is Lord. That was a statement that they expected the people to believe. Who is your Lord? Well, the emperor is my Lord. The leader of the Roman Empire is my Lord. And the Christians said, well, we were taught something else by Jesus, who we follow. We were taught that he is Lord, and that's what we testify. So unfortunately, we first follow him, and then we will follow you, the emperor, seeing as you're the leader of this empire we're part of. And they did not like that. And so this statement that Peter says here is not only the statement that the church was built on, but it was also the statement that brought a lot of pain for the church. But Jesus built his church on this statement, and that's why they never went away from the statement, even when they were being killed for it. So just hear how strong this statement actually is. It's a very, very powerful and a very, very strong statement. The second thing we have to remember is that when he says, I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not stop this church. We can read something very clear into this. A gate, I think all of you can agree, a gate is a weapon of defense. Okay, now I'm going to lose some people, but it's a weapon of defense and not offense. So in other words, it's something to keep people who attack out and not to attack people with. I don't know when the last time was that you saw a war movie, but there was no one on the battlefield running with a gate and hitting people. You know, I don't know if you've ever seen that. That's just weird. A gate is there to keep people out. So what that implies is that the church is actually a movement. It's something that moves forward. Because if Jesus says a gate won't stop it, that means we're called to walk past the gate. We have to actually break down those gates. We have to run through the gates and not wait for people to come to us, not wait for the world to change while we sit in our comfortable buildings, while we sit with our air cons. We can't wait for people to come. We have to run and barge through the gates. Do you hear how powerful it is what Jesus is actually saying here? He's saying the church is something that's alive, the church is something that's living, the church is something that's moving, and the church is something that has to do whatever it has to do. All the things you guys mentioned now, these things need to happen as a movement and not a static building waiting for people to come so that we can change their lives or so that we can accept them. Let's go accept them where they are. Let's go change their lives where they are. Let's move into the church, into the world as a church. So second thing we learn is that the church is moving and living. And that's the most amazing thing, is when you're busy with church, you're busy with something that will last forever. And hear how beautiful this is. What we are busy with now on this Zoom meeting was something that Jesus predicted 2,000 years ago. When he says this to Jesus, Jesus predicted it. Let me read you this quote. It says, Jesus predicted us. Every time we gather with other believers to worship, to learn, we are a present day fulfillment of Jesus' words 2,000 years ago. Congratulations. So you are part of something that Jesus said will be. Nothing will stop this. 2,000 years from now, 3,000 years from now, this thing will still exist. And now we are a testament to that. This is proof that Jesus was telling the truth. This is proof that he was right when he said, nothing will stop this movement. It will keep on moving. Even if it has to move on Zoom, it will move, and it will never stop moving. And that's something beautiful we learned from this pandemic as well. The church not giving up, the church not stopping. And then we have to look at the word church, obviously. And it's actually a horrible word if you think about it. And it's the one thing, I never bash Bible translations, but that's the one word I just wish we could translate differently. Because church comes from a German word that just means location or a place. And as we've said many times tonight, that's not the heart of it. When Jesus said, I will build my church, he actually said, I will build a new gathering. So I will build an assembly. I will build a people that are coming together for a certain purpose. They're coming out of their houses and they're coming for a certain purpose. That's what makes the pandemic so hard, because no one's coming out of their houses. But we're coming out and we are meeting for a certain purpose. The first thing is, obviously, we know the foundation of this movement, of this assembly, is Jesus and the fact that he is Lord. It's so important for us to realize that, is that that's our foundation. But the second reason we gather is because we need to love this broken world. That's our purpose. It's the reason we get together, is so we can firstly express the way, how much we love Jesus and how much we want to follow him as our Lord. But secondly, because we want to express how much we want to be moving into the world. Our purpose is to really go and find those broken people who need love, who need acceptance, who need to not be in isolation, all those things we've shared with each other tonight. That's so important for us to do that, because otherwise we're not a movement, we're just a club, like a culture club or a whatever club, just getting together, telling each other how good we are, and then going home. And that's not the heart. We want to really be in the world, fixing the problems, working hard at doing what we need to do. I want to just share a few facts with you, and that we can learn about the essence of church in this hard pandemic times. The first is, they did a study and they found out in Japan, when they had the toughest lockdown, because of that lockdown, the months following the lockdown, even when they were out of lockdown, more people committed suicide in a single month than have died of COVID since COVID started happening. So COVID has killed less people in Japan than suicides kill in a single month. So in a single month, more people lose their lives because of suicide than they've lost in the whole COVID pandemic. That's what isolation does to people. People cannot be in isolation. A second thing that maybe proves that to us is a medical study done in old age homes. They actually found that the aging process is accelerated by the lockdown, by the isolation that the old people are now in, because their families can't visit them, they can't go to church, which is something that's very important to a lot of older people. They want to see their pastor, they want to go to the people there, they want to drink tea, whatever else. They can't do it, and they are actually aging faster because of it. They are literally dying sooner than they should have. Maybe they are dying of things that small babies die of when they are abandoned. So when small babies are abandoned, they die a lot of times because of the lack of community, the lack of care. And they're saying literally old people are now dying because of the same, and they have the same diagnosis as a baby that's abandoned. Do you realize how much we need community? And do you realize how many people in the world do not have it? And that's one of the main reasons we as the church exist, is to move into this isolated world, world of isolation, people having earphones on the trains, people who want to just be disconnected from the world as much as possible. Let's engage them. Let's connect with them. I think that's church. I think that's what this gathering is about. So I'll end with this. I will and by the way, if it looked like I wasn't concentrating, it's because I know Liverpool is playing a massive game now and it stresses me out. But so the other thing I just want to close with is that when we talk about church, we live in such a consumer culture. And I'm sorry if I offend you at this stage. But we live in a culture where we always can pick and choose what we want. COVID has made it even more so. I mean, there are more apps where you can just buy things that are delivered to your doorstep and whatever else. And even with church online, there's a lot more churches online now than there used to be, because people who didn't have an online ministry were forced to now have one. We would never have had an online ministry, I don't think, if we weren't forced. And we still don't have just sermons we upload on a Sunday because, well, firstly, I don't think we're geared for it. Secondly, we want to engage with people, and we want to learn from people. But this has made church become a buffet. You know, have you ever been to a buffet where you can just walk through and you always take too much food? Like always, always, always. You're like, oh, I want this potato salad and I want the noodle salad. Oh, and there's like another, I'm going to take all the salads. And then you come to the end of the road and you're like, oh, here are the meats. And you don't have enough space on your plate for the meat because you've filled it up with salads you never eat. And I think that's the weird thing of a buffet. And we are, because of this, living, I think, with spiritual obesity, because we have so many different things to choose from. And we're like, okay, I want this church's community, but I like this church's preaching. And I like this church's lights, but I like this church's music more. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to listen to this sermon online. I'm going to go have dinner with this church. And then I'm going to go, you know how many people tell me that? Like, we come to Table Church because you guys understand something about community. I'm like, okay, but do you realize that we have bad preaching? Because I do most of it. And secondly, do you realize that we actually don't have a very strong kids ministry because we don't have a lot of kids in our church? And we don't have this and this and this. Like, yeah, it's fine. I'll find that at the other church. And I'll find this. And you see, that's what this is becoming. Church is becoming a buffet where people can just pick and choose what they want from what church. And I don't think that's the heart of Jesus. I don't think that's what we're reading about here when we read about this powerful movement of people who are gathering for a specific purpose to change this world. And I want to be upfront with you, like the best way I've found to really bring change as a community and to bring change as a church is to be committed to one, to be committed to a community that you want to change the world with and that you want to experience life with. Because the deeper you grow in your relationships with the people in this community and the people around you, the easier you share your struggles. And the easier you share your struggles, the easier you allow the other people to be church. And the easier you allow the other people to be church, the more you become church and the more you become what you need to become. And so I want to just share with you from my heart, a plea with you is to say that join a church. Be part of a community. It will change your life forever. I know it for a fact. It changed my life, and I think it changed a lot of people on yours lives. But make sure that you commit to change those people's lives just as much as they will commit to change your life.